My mother didn't lower her voice when she said it. She didn't soften it either. We just can't afford 2 tickets. Avery. The words landed cleanly, like she had practiced them, across the table. My father nodded once, already aligned. My brother Jason leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, avoiding my eyes. Before I could respond, my mother added, Jason's trip is already booked. It wouldn't make sense to change it now. I felt something inside me pause, not break, just stop moving forward. This is an original story written by the author of the Revenge Pulse channel, built from familiar social issues with the purpose of helping viewers reflect, heal, and draw meaningful lessons. The content is not intended to depict any real individual. My father cleared his throat. This isn't just a vacation, he said. It's the Tech Growth Summit in San Diego. This could actually help Jason's future. Jason finally spoke. It's only 5 days, he said carefully, like he was stepping around glass. You're busy with work, anyway. Busy. That was the word they always used when they wanted something to sound reasonable. I help pay the bills, I said, keeping my voice even. I live here too. My mother's smile tightened. And we appreciate that. You know we do. That's exactly why we knew you'd understand. There it was. The role handed back to me, like it always was. My father leaned forward. Your brother has potential. Avery, this is the kind of opportunity that doesn't come around often. I waited for the rest of the sentence. It never came. They didn't need to say it out loud anymore. Jason glanced at me, then away. I didn't plan this, he said quietly. Mom and Dad handled it. As if decisions didn't have consequences. So I stay, I said. You go. My mother reached across the table and touched my hand. Just this once, she said. There will be other trips. I nodded. I always nodded. That was my part. But as I sat there, listening to them discuss flights and schedules and conference panels, something shifted. I looked around the room at the couch I had paid for, the television mounted with my card, the kitchen appliances I replaced when things broke. I realized they weren't choosing Jason over me for the first time. They were choosing the version of me that made their lives easier. When dinner ended, my mother hugged me and said, "Thank you for being mature about this." I smiled back, because that was expected. If this sounds familiar, if you've ever been told you were strong enough to go without, stay with me. Sometimes the quiet roles are the ones that cost the most. They didn't say it outright, but everyone in the house knew what my role was. I paid the electricity bill when the notice came in red. I covered groceries when my mother sighed and said things were tight this month. When the dishwasher died, my father looked at me and said, "You're better with money," and somehow that became my responsibility too. Jason never asked how much any of it cost. One evening, while I was sorting receipts at the kitchen counter, my mother leaned against the doorway and said, "I don't know how we'd manage without you." It sounded like praise. It felt like a sentence. Jason walked in, phone in hand, grinning. "Mom, Dad, my mentor thinks I should pitch at another event next quarter," he said. "It's a big deal." "That's amazing," my father said immediately. "See, Avery, this is what we're talking about." I looked up. "Talking about what about investing in the future?" he replied, as if it were obvious. Jason glanced at the papers in front of me. "You still doing bill stuff?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He shrugged. "I'd lose my mind dealing with all that." My mother laughed softly. "That's because Avery's good at it. Good at it. Like it was a talent I'd chosen." A week later, Jason's car broke down. My father knocked on my bedroom door and said, "Can you spot us $900 just until next month?" I transferred the money before he finished explaining. Jason texted me a thumbs-up emoji, nothing else. Later that night, my mother passed my room and said, "You're such a blessing, Avery." I stared at the ceiling, listening to Jason laugh on a call in the living room, talking about San Diego and opportunities and timing. They didn't see what they were doing. Or maybe they did. And calling it appreciation made it easier to live with. By the time the house went quiet, I understood something I hadn't let myself name before. They hadn't forgotten me. They had assigned me. We were halfway through dinner when I finally spoke. "I need to say something," I said, keeping my fork on the plate so my hands wouldn't shake. My mother glanced at me, then at my father, as if checking whether this was allowed. "Can it wait?" she asked. Jason was telling us about the conference schedule. "No," I said. "It can't." Jason leaned back in his chair. "What's going on?" I took a breath. "I help pay for this house. I cover utilities, groceries, repairs. I don't complain. But when something good comes up, I'm suddenly not part of the conversation." My father sighed. "We're not doing this tonight. That's the problem," I said. "You never do it any night." My mother set her napkin down carefully. "Avery, you're being emotional." "I'm being specific." I said. "You said you couldn't afford 2 tickets. But you can afford 5 days in San Diego, a conference pass, and a hotel for Jason." Jason shifted. "It's not the same thing." "Explain how," I said. Looking at him now, he opened his mouth, then closed it. My father stepped in instead. "Jason has potential," he said. "This trip could change things for him." And me, I asked, "What about me?" My father didn't hesitate. "You already have a job." The words landed heavier than anything else that night. My mother rushed in quickly. "Your father didn't mean it like that." "He did," I said. "He meant I'm already useful." Jason stared at his plate. "This is getting blown out of proportion. I stayed late at work last week so the power wouldn't get shut off." I said. "I didn't mention it because I didn't want to stress anyone out." My mother's eyes flickered. "We said thank you." "You said thank you," I replied. "You didn't change anything." My father's voice hardened. "Life isn't always equal. Jason is chasing something. You're stable. Stable isn't a reward." I said, "It's a position you put me in so you wouldn't have to worry." Jason finally looked at me. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "No," I said. "You just accepted it." Silence spread across the table. My mother reached for my hand again. "We knew you'd understand," she whispered. I pulled my hand back. Understanding, I realized, had become their favorite way to excuse taking from me. I stood up and cleared my plate. "Enjoy dinner," I said quietly. As I walked down the hallway, I heard my father say, "She'll cool off." He was wrong. Something in me had gone cold for good. Jason called on the second night of the trip. I knew it was him before I answered. He always called when he wanted something to sound casual. "Hey," he said. His voice was loud, full of movement. "You busy? I'm at home," I said. Right. He replied quickly. "Listen, I hate to ask, but things here are more expensive than I thought." I waited. "There's this dinner," he continued. "Investors, speakers, people who actually matter. I can't really skip it." "How much?" I asked. "About $800, he said. "I'll pay you back when I get home." The words slid into place like they had 100 times before. "I already paid the electric bill this month," I said. There was a pause. "Yeah, but this is different," Jason replied. "This could lead to something real." I pictured my mother nodding, my father agreeing without question. "Mom and Dad know you're calling," I asked. "They said you'd understand," he said, almost apologetic. "They always say that." I closed my eyes. For a moment, I considered saying yes. I could feel the old instinct rise up, that reflex to fix things before anyone felt uncomfortable. "I'm not sending it," I said. "What?" Jason laughed softly, like I was joking. "I'm not sending the money," I repeated. Another pause. Longer this time. "Avery, don't do this right now. Do what I said. Stop paying for your future." "That's not fair," he snapped. "I stayed. I said. You went." He exhaled sharply. Fine. I'll figure it out. The call ended without a goodbye. I set my phone down and sat in the quiet, my hands steady in a way they never had been before. A few minutes later, my mother texted me, "Your brother is stressed. Please don't make this harder." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the folder I had been adding to for years, one receipt at a time. The folder was heavier than it looked. I spread the papers across my bed, stacking them by year. Couch, television, microwave, cookware, lamps. A desk I bought when I started managing shifts. Each receipt told the same story in different ink. My phone buzzed. My friend Jordan's name lit up the screen. "You sound different," Jordan said after I explained everything. Not angry. Just done. "I am done," I said. "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just taking what's mine." "That matters," Jordan replied. "A lot." The next morning, I called a moving company. The man on the line sounded bored, efficient. "What are we moving?" he asked. "Furniture and appliances," I said. "Everything I personally paid for." He paused. "Anyone else on site?" "No," I said. "They're out of town." "Fine," he replied. "We'll send a truck on Thursday." I hung up and felt something settle in my chest. Not relief, certainty. When the movers arrived, one of them glanced around the living room. "You sure all this is yours?" "Yes," I said, and handed him the folder. "Every item I point to is backed up." He flipped through a few pages and nodded. "That makes my job easy." I walked them through the house slowly. The couch, the television, the bar stools, the microwave, the cookware in that cabinet, the desk and lamp in my room. "What about the fridge?" one mover asked. "That stays," I said. "They bought it before I moved back." "And the dining table?" "Stays," I repeated. "Same reason." They didn't argue. They just checked boxes. As the rooms emptied, my phone rang again. This time it was my father. "We just landed," he said without greeting. "Jason says you didn't help him." "I didn't." I said. "You're really going to make a statement over this?" he asked. "I already did." I replied. "You're embarrassing us," he said. "I'm being accurate," I said, and ended the call. By the time the truck was full, the house felt honest, not empty, just stripped of the illusion that it had ever been balanced. At my new apartment in Costa Mesa, the landlord handed me the keys and said, "You're starting fresh." I carried my own boxes inside. That night, I sat on my couch, and turned on my television. My phone stayed silent. The receipts were back in the folder, tucked away. I didn't need them anymore. I knew exactly what they meant. They came back on a Sunday evening. I wasn't there to see it, but I didn't need to be. I knew the timing because my phone started vibrating just after 7. First my mother, then my father, then Jason, twice in a row. I let it ring. A few minutes later, a text came through from Jordan. "They're home," it read, "and they're losing their minds." Another message followed, this time with a photo. My parents stood just inside the front door, frozen. My father's jaw was clenched. My mother's hand was still on her purse strap, like she hadn't let go yet. Behind them, the living room looked unfamiliar. No couch, no television. Bare floor where something had clearly been. My phone rang again. I ignored it. Jordan called instead. "Your mom screamed," she said quietly, not like angry, like panicked. I closed my eyes. "Did they check the bedrooms?" "Yes," she said. "Your dad kept saying, 'This doesn't make sense.'" Another call came in. Jason this time. I answered. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I moved." I said. "You emptied the house," he snapped. "People are talking already." I took what I paid for. I replied. "That was for the family." He said. "No," I said. "It was for the house. There's a difference." He exhaled sharply. "Mom is crying." I didn't answer. My father left a voicemail. His voice was controlled, but strained. This is not how adults handle conflict. You took things that don't just belong to you. My mother's voicemail came next, softer. We were so scared. Avery, for a moment, I thought something terrible had happened to you. I listened to that one twice. When my phone finally went quiet, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. The silence felt different here, not heavy, not expectant. A knock came at my door less than an hour later. 3 hard knocks. Familiar. Insistent. I opened it. My parents stepped inside without waiting. My mother's eyes went straight to the television. "There it is," she said, pointing. "You took everything. I took my things," I said. My father turned slowly, taking in the space. "You planned this. I prepared. I corrected. This is theft," he said. I walked to the table, pulled out the folder, and set it down between us. "Then call someone." No one moved. Jason stood in the doorway, his face tight. "You didn't have to do it like this." "Yes," I said. I did. The power in the room shifted then, quiet but unmistakable. They weren't standing in my life anymore. They were standing in its aftermath. They stayed for less than 15 minutes. My father paced the living room, his steps sharp, controlled. My mother stood near the window, arms folded tight, like she was holding herself together by force. Jason hovered near the door, eyes flicking from the television to the couch to the kitchen, counting what was missing. "This is extreme," my father said. "You could have talked to us." "I did," I said. "For years." My mother turned. "You humiliated us." "I told you the truth," I replied. Jason rubbed his face. "Everyone's asking questions. Neighbors. Mom's sister. People are saying you furnished the whole house." I didn't deny it. My father's voice dropped. "Do you know how this makes us look?" "I know how it made me live," I said. My mother stepped closer. "We were worried when we came home. We thought something happened to you. You were worried when the house was quiet," I said. "Not when I was." Her mouth opened, then closed. Jason spoke again, softer this time. "You didn't have to leave us like this." "I didn't leave you," I said. "I stopped holding you up." My father stared at the floor. "So this is it. You're cutting us off over one trip." "No," I said, "over being invisible." The word landed between us and stayed there. My mother reached for my arm. "We tried our best." "Your best worked for you," I said. "It cost me." Silence followed. Not the tense kind, the empty kind. Jason shifted his weight. "What do you want us to do now?" I looked at him, really looked. The brother they had poured so much hope into, standing in a room he hadn't helped build. "I want you to sit with it," I said, "all of it." My father exhaled slowly. "We need time." "You've had years," I replied. They left without another word. No slammed doors, no threats, just footsteps fading down the hall. When the door closed, the quiet didn't feel like punishment. It felt like proof. For the first time, they were hearing what I had lived inside. They came back 2 days later. This time, my father knocked like he expected resistance. When I opened the door, he didn't step inside right away. My mother stood behind him, quiet. Jason lingered near the stairs, hands in his pockets. "We need to talk," my father said. "You're already talking," I replied, and stepped aside. My father didn't waste time. "You took things that were used by the whole family. That doesn't make them yours." I walked to the table and pulled out the folder. "Usage doesn't change ownership." My mother winced. "Avery, please." I opened the folder and slid the papers toward them. Couch. Purchased 3 years ago. Paid in full on my card. Television. Same year. Microwave. First paycheck after I started managing shifts. Jason leaned in, reading. His jaw tightened. My father's voice rose. You can't just strip a house and call it fairness. I didn't strip it. I said. I removed myself from it. That's not how families work, he snapped. That's exactly how this one did. I said. My mother finally spoke. We were going to pay you back. You've been saying that for 5 years. I said. In that time? I covered utilities, groceries, repairs, and $900 when Jason's car broke down. Jason looked up. You never told me it was that much. I wasn't supposed to. I said. That's how it stayed easy. My father clenched his jaw. This is childish. If you think this ends here, you're wrong. Then call someone. I said, pushing the folder closer. Police. Lawyer. Anyone who will look at the paperwork? He didn't move. The room went quiet, the kind that forces honesty to the surface. My mother sank into one of the chairs and covered her face. We didn't realize how much we were leaning on you. You did, I said. You just decided it was easier than fixing it. Jason stepped forward. I didn't stop them. I know, I said. His voice dropped. Because it benefited me. I nodded. That's the truth. My father looked between us, something breaking in his expression. So what? Now I stood up straighter. Now I set the terms. They waited. I stay in contact. I said, sometimes. I don't pay for anything. I don't rescue anyone. If you want a relationship with me, it's equal or it doesn't exist, my mother whispered. And if we mess up, then I leave. I said. No anger, no threat, just fact. My father swallowed. We made mistakes. You built a system. I replied. I'm stepping out of it. They left slower this time. Jason paused at the door. I'll call you, he said. Not yet. I replied. When the door closed, I sat down and felt the room settle around me. For the first time, nothing was being taken from me. A week later, my manager pulled me aside after closing. You've been carrying this place, she said. We want you as operations manager. I nodded, steady. I accept. That night, I opened a new savings account and labeled it Future Avery. No explanations attached, no one else's emergencies built into it. My mother called once. She didn't ask for money. That was new. I'm starting therapy, she said quietly. I'm glad. I replied. I didn't promise anything more. Jason texted a simple line. I'm thinking about things differently now. I left it unread. I sat on my couch, the same one they once leaned on, and let the quiet stay quiet. Nothing was owed. Nothing was missing. If you've ever been the strong one everyone relied on, stay with this story. Sometimes the bravest move isn't fixing what's broken, it's choosing yourself and letting the rest catch up.